Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Hello friends, if you're watching this video then I've just gone live after the official faction announcement for the World Eaters has been confirmed. I've had the majority of this video completed for a while now, but I wanted to wait and deliver this once the actual announcement had been made. For the connected among you on social media, you've probably seen this image which has been data mined and floating around since January 30th. On it you can see that there are 3 World Eaters units highlighted. Data mines are always subject to change but usually give us some insight into what is coming to the game. As far as I'm aware, the data mines this time did not contain specifics into exactly what the units do, so I have compiled some speculation on it. I know that the World Eaters are a massively popular faction, so I'm keen to hear from those of you who know these units well and how they might translate into the game. We'll work our way through these 3 units, moving from the most to least interesting. Kharn the Betrayer is among the most iconic World Eaters, the living champion of the Chaos Blood God, Khorne. He is the fiercest and most powerful warrior of the World Eaters, and I'm sure that will be translated into a powerful unit in Tacticus. From a stats point of view, he isn't much to look at defensively. He has fairly standard Space Marine numbers for toughness and armor save, and I would expect him to have similarly average health and armor stats in Tacticus. Movement of 6 inches is standard for an infantry model. Leadership and OC don't have any equivalents in Tacticus. His weapon profile is fairly unique and should translate easily to game. He has a plasma pistol, which I imagine will give him a short-ranged plasma attack. In his other hand, he wields the iconic Gore Child, a legendary artifact from the Great Crusade that is a massive chain axe. It has an impressive profile with lots of attacks and damage, and I would expect that it would give Kharn a multi-hit, high damage attack. The chain axe in lore is a chain weapon, so we might see that as its weapon type. I'm already salivating at the potential combinations with another chain weapon wielding Space Wolf. I've dissected these characters with a lore guru, Puntyer, who has reminded me that all of the current Chaos champions in the game are legendary characters. Ahriman for Tzeentch and Typhus for Nurgle. I suspect that we will see Kharn as a legendary release event character for the World Eaters faction in turn. Kharn has a lot of interesting abilities as well. Legendary Kill Her makes him more accurate and lethal, which is fairly non-specific in terms of translating into abilities and traits. The Betrayer is a really unique one. Historically, Kharn has always been a bloodthirsty warrior that doesn't care who he kills as long as something dies. On the tabletop, he has the potential to kill your own units. I wonder if that might give him a passive akin to God's Will, where he does damage at the end of his movement to an adjacent enemy. Except in Kharn's case, the damage might end on an ally as well. Berserker Frenzy is basically identical to the final Vengeance trait. The next unit is the World Eater Terminator. It's the unit pictured in the thumbnail which I've copied on this slide for analysis. From a stats and defensive profile, we're familiar with what Terminator units do. Arjak, Typhus, Toth, and Angrax are in-game examples. They have low movement with a movement of 2, but compensate with powerful defensive stats, usually with high health and armor, and also the accompanying Terminator armor trait. In the case of Angrax and Arjak, they also have the Deep Strike trait, allowing them to start the battle in an advanced position to mitigate poor movement stats. Tabletop players will be familiar with the breadth of weapon options that the Terminator can be equipped with. In this character image we can see a chain axe being held in one hand and what looks like a heavy flamer in the other. This might combine into a melee chain or power attack profile and a ranged flame attack profile. The comparisons thus far are very similar into how Toth plays out mechanically, so I wouldn't be surprised if Snowprint throws some extra things in there to make the character feel unique. The World Eater Terminator has an ability called Bloody Fury, which makes it more powerful if it has taken damage or lost units in the squad. This could potentially be an interesting passive that the Terminators have, where it does increasing damage based on how much damage it has already taken or how many times it has been attacked. The final unit is the Jakhal. These have fairly weak, almost Imperial Guardsman-like stat profiles compared to the other units. 6 inches is standard movement for infantry as previously mentioned. There is a pistol ranged attack and a breadth of different melee weapon attack options. I have to admit that the datasheet for this model doesn't give a huge amount of insight into what the character will be from an offensive point of view in the game. Its abilities are again pretty hard to translate into a Tacticus character. These units are all about objective control, which doesn't exist in Tacticus. They do have the Feel No Pain special rule, which probably means that they will get the Resilient trait in-game. The last thing to chat about is the overall faction trait. We have seen Snowprint be pretty consistent about giving Chaos factions a unique trait in the past. whether that is Let the Galaxy Burn for the Black Legion, Contagions of Nurgle for the Death Guard, or Weaver of Fates for the Thousand Suns. Blessings of Khorne is the World Eater's tabletop trait that gives them a random bonus for each round of combat. I've compiled what the tabletop traits might look like in-game, and it is plausible that Snowprint either do something similar from a random generator each turn, or they simply pick one of these for the entire battle. The World Eaters are an inherently melee-focused faction, and Puntyer had suggested possibly a reverse close combat weakness trait, where the faction gets more damage from being in melee range. That's all I've got for today, just some speculation, but short and sweet. Puntyer has been instrumental in putting this video together and supports me in a lot of other content that I do. If you are a newer player who hasn't yet used their referral code, I would love if you could consider entering his as shown on screen. It earns you 100 Blackstone and supports Punt, who in turn supports me in the work that I do. It is single use though, so choose who you support carefully. Finally, if you're interested in joining the Eye of Terror cluster, drop by our Discord server. We currently have empty slots in our guilds, particularly with the Dark Angels, who have still managed to hang around the top 10 despite having a couple of players retire. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the World Eaters and what you're excited to see from the faction. Bye for now.
Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi.